Today's folklore is about the woman in white, or the woman of the woods in Austin. The story begins in 1764 when a Frenchman, Adelaide, Aubin, and his wife, Delphine Aubin, were in our area due to catching furs. There were so many creeks that this area to the Native Americans was very prevalent with beaver and muskrat, and these could make very good furs to sell to back to France and back in Europe. So Adelaide was living out here with his wife, and at this time this area was very desolate. There wasn't many people, there wasn't any towns. It was still part of the Virginia colony, and people were just coming out here to trap and to find things. Well, one day Adelaide came back, and he was at the dinner table with his two kids and Delphine. And Adelaide had quite a horrible night, and they weren't doing well in the trapping. And he took a mason jar of carbolic acid, and he drank it and sent his family to bed. When the next thing, Delphine wakes up screaming, "Something's wrong with your father's sick," and they run out to try to get help from the nearest house. Well, he drank carbolic acid, and basically his innards were all tore up, and so he passed away that night. And Delphine laid by the bed and cried and cried and cried all night. Kept crying, and then she realized her children had never came back, and that her children were gone. So Delphine went out and started looking for her kids, and found that both kids had washed up on a swollen creek. And she took a rock and beat her head in, screaming her children's names. And then nowadays you can hear her walking by the creek beds when they're swollen. You can hear her calling out for her children. And sometimes you can even hear her skull bashing against the rocks. Well, that is the little story of the woman in white, or the woman of Austin Woods.